We all knew that Donald Trump has been winning over and over again, and that this would make Democrats desperate. I just didn't know how low the Democrats would stoop in their desperation to defeat Donald Trump. And now we can see it. They've signed the deal with the devil. Now, you can call the Republican Party evil because you disagree with their politics, but it's kind of silly. We all disagree with other people on policy and think one person is good or evil, but there's a big difference with what the Democrats are doing with Michael Bloomberg. You see, Bloomberg isn't just buying ads to win the presidency. He's straight up buying the Democratic Party. He's pumping millions into Democratic House candidates. He's funding lawyers in state AG offices, and he directly gave the party and their PACs a substantial amount of money. All of a sudden, they changed the rules for him. They let him on the debate stage, and now he's qualified. They've opened the door because he paid them cold, hard cash. A man who's worth substantially more than Donald Trump, who's been embroiled in much harsher political controversies as a Republican mayor in New York City. The Democrats are so desperate and terrified, they are absolutely embracing the cold, hard cash of Michael Bloomberg. But I'll tell you why I say they've become the party of corruption and evil. Because they are defending the man. They have thrown all principle out the window. Any statement they've ever made about getting money out of politics is now completely without merit because they're actively defending Bloomberg and his massive spending. I'm not kidding. Stacey Abrams received $5 million for her PAC from Michael Bloomberg and is defending him on The View with misinformation nonetheless. Bloomberg won't be disclosing where his money is going and where it's coming from, not until after Super Tuesday. So here you have a man of massive wealth buying his way in, propping up Democrats and left-wing causes, and they gladly take the money and defend him, even on The View. I'm not talking about progressive activists because they're pushing back. It's the Democratic establishment and high-profile Democratic voters and personalities saying it's fine. We'll take whatever we can get because they're that desperate to win. I have the story from the Hill. Democrats worried about Trump's growing strength. But I don't want to read this to you. I want to show you this as an example of their fear and how they're willing to do whatever it takes. What I really want to show you is this from New York Magazine. Michael Bloomberg has offered Democrats a Faustian bargain. Forfeit all credibility on the issues of money and politics and democratic reform, and he'll spend whatever it takes to make Trump go away. They'd be fools to accept it. There are still many people in media and on the left saying stop, but it's too late. He gave massive amounts of money to House Democrats to win against their Republican counterparts in moderate districts. He's given money to the Democratic Party, and now he has been welcomed on the stage, and high-profile celebrities endorse it. Let's read this story, but before we do, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's several ways you can give, but the best thing you can do is share this video. It may not break any echo chambers, but I think it's fair to say, if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, if you're a progressive leftist, democratic socialist, someone on the left, you're probably going to be in agreement with a Trump supporter when you recognize that Michael Bloomberg is a serious threat to democracy in this country. The mainstream Democrats, the establishment, they don't care. They just want to win. But I'll tell you this, and we'll read this story. Donald Trump, for all of his faults, for everything I don't like about him or disagree with, is a legitimate president. Now, they've tried to claim Russiagate and Ukrainegate and all these other scandals, but let's be real. Donald Trump won. He did. They didn't think he would. No one thought he would, but he did win. He didn't spend hundreds of millions of dollars. He actually fought against the Republican establishment. He didn't buy it. Michael Bloomberg was actually in office in New York when he implemented extremely, let's just say, troubling policies targeting minorities and poor people, and he defends it. He actually calls for taxing the poor. The Democrats are willing to embrace all of this, which shows me they have no principle. They've sold them. What's fascinating is it really is a Faustian bargain, as the New York Mag says, and this is from the Intelligencer, a paper I typically take issue with, but it's true. Michael Bloomberg is everything they claim to hate. He is everything they claim Donald Trump is, but worse. And he said, I'll give you the money, and then you make me the president. So let me explain, and then we'll read this. There's a big difference between the Koch brothers or Soros or some high-profile billionaire funding programs. Bloomberg is a man who wants the office itself. He is telling them to give up their position to him. It's not an issue of someone who's rich funding causes. It's an issue of someone rich buying the seat. And they're doing it. They're giving it. Let's read. So at The Intelligencer, we have from Eric Levitz writing, Mike Bloomberg has offered America a Faustian bargain. Forfeit all credibility on issues of money in politics and democratic reform, and he will spend whatever it takes to make the bad man in the White House go away. The market for what Bloomberg is selling is large and growing, thanks in no small part to the $300 million he's already spent advertising it. Many rank and file Democrats, like so many disillusioned voters in democracies the world over, like the idea of hiring a no-nonsense post-political businessman to fix their broken government. Meanwhile, many Democratic elites see Bloomberg as a savior who can single-handedly stop the party nominating a supposedly unelectable socialist, provide its vulnerable first-term suburban House members with an ideal standard bearer, and liberate the party from all resource constraints and fundraising headaches as it rides a rising tide of billionaire bucks back into power. But Democrats would be fools to accept Bloomberg's indecent proposal. I am not an anti-big dollar donor purist. Removing an increasingly lawless, openly racist president from power is more integral to realizing our nation's democratic promise than keeping our side's FEC records pristine. Bloomberg has said that he's willing to put his well-heeled campaign operation behind the Democratic nominee this fall, even if that nominee proves to be a self-avowed socialist. If the former mayor is telling the truth, if he is truly willing to choose social democracy over barbarism and bankroll a Democratic candidate who is openly hostile to the billionaire class, then Democrats should probably take his money and run. But accepting a plutocrat's patronage and letting your party serve as a vehicle for him to amass direct personal power over our government are two very different propositions. Now, that was a very biased and verbose way to say what I just did. It's one thing if a rich person gives donations. It's another thing if he wants the seat itself and you give it up. The terrifying reality of the Democratic Party is they've been preparing for this. This transformation didn't happen overnight. I did a video talking about Democrats selling their soul, but the reality is, as I've learned, they already have a long time ago. Vox.com, Democrats are replacing Republicans as the preferred party of the very wealthy. This is from Vox. Vox is an outlet that recently published a piece called The Case for Michael Bloomberg. You see, back in 2016, they noticed this, that it used to be Republicans were perceived as the party for the very wealthy, and the Democrats were for the poor, the minorities, the working class. Not anymore. Not at all. It's the strangest thing to me. We seem to have two factions on the left. You have the woke ideologues who believe that Serena Williams is oppressed, even though she's worth millions of dollars, and a poor homeless white man is the oppressor. That is insane backwards thinking. But the other alternative is the Bloomberg elites, the people who have sold their souls to the devil for a chance to win political power. These are the two predominant factions. Where are the sane moderates representing the Democratic Party? I'm sorry, they're gone. And that's why people like me who used to be in favor of these ideas are now called politically homeless. I'll show you this story. Several stories. Mike Bloomberg to donate $10 million to House Democrats targeted by the GOP. You see, the man didn't just want to buy access. He wanted to buy out all of them. And it's working. The best example being Stacey Abrams. And I'll get to that. Stacey Abrams defending what he's doing. Why? He gave her $5 million. I'm not kidding. He actually gave $5 million to her PAC. And all of a sudden she says, Bloomberg's doing the right thing. That's right. That's called corruption. That is literally corruption. Well, everybody wants to justify why they took the money. Everyone thinks they're morally justified in doing these things. They say, God's on my side, or at least when I'm in power, I can do the right thing. And that's how it always plays out with these utopianists. They think Bloomberg might be bad, but hey, it'll be better when I'm in power. Reminds me of Darth Vader, actually. You ever watch Revenge of the Sith? When Anakin is turning to the dark side and he tells Padme, we can overthrow the Emperor. I'll use him. He'll make me more powerful. That's what they really think. But we know how it plays out. Bloomberg will stay in power. He'll take that power. And everything about the man is worse than everything you have ever said about Donald Trump. He is buying House Democrats. He is buying the Democratic Party. And he is buying lawyers inside state AG offices. It's not simple. It's not a game. It is terrifying. It is a man with seemingly no conscience. He will buy everything he can. But more importantly, it's not about the conscience of Michael Bloomberg. I'm sure he thinks he's the hero of his own story, too. What's terrifying are the Democrats who are openly embracing this and excusing it, saying, well, so what? It's better that we have the power. We'll do the right thing. We can't trust them with it. And now what do we get? There it is. The Democrats cheated and changed the rules. And let me tell you something horrifying. Tulsi Gabbard, for all her faults, you might not like her, you might disagree with her, be it on the left or the right, she served this country. In fact, she still serves this country. She is an honorable major in the National Guard, and she stood up to defend the country that she loves. And while you may disagree with her politically, I think it's fair to say most people will respect her service. And she opposes war. But for that, she earns nothing. They lie, they smear her, and they push her out of the debate, saying, sorry, you just didn't qualify. You're not popular enough. Well, I think that's fair to say to a certain degree that she wasn't popular enough, fine. But Mike Bloomberg, he bought the popularity. He didn't campaign. And they say, right this way, sir, let me get the door for you. And now we can see it's finally happened what we knew would happen. Now, whether or not he actually goes on the debate stage, we'll see. But I think he'll definitely do it. Michael Bloomberg is now in second place in the Democratic primary. In the aggregate, I think it's fair to say that he is in second place because Biden is still, for some reason, in second place. And if Biden's not running, get him out of there. If we're looking at the actual growth, we're looking at the actual public, perception and the press attention, it's Bernie and it's Bloomberg. I think what we'll see come the convention is Bernie with the majority of delegates, but a contested convention where the Democratic superdelegates put Michael Bloomberg in power. Fox wrote a story, The Case for Michael Bloomberg, because you actually have the high-profile mainstream left supporting this man. And this is why I think we've crossed the Rubicon. It's over. I mean, this is it. The Democrats are unashamed. They don't care. They just think Trump shouldn't win. They tried impeaching him and they failed. They tried competing with, well, actually, they failed to compete with him. They couldn't campaign on kitchen table issues. And now we can see, for those that are listening, I'll explain it. Biden was never really the front runner. They claimed he was, but he wasn't. That's just nonsense. We can now see that Sanders is at 24.8 and Bloomberg is at 14.6. Biden will soon be gone. Bloomberg is climbing in the polls, and that's where we're going. Stacey Abrams absolutely wants to run for president one day, but says she'd accept a VP slot in 2020. The former Georgia lawmaker opted against endorsing a candidate this cycle. It's from The View. I actually have two stories from The View. In this story, Stacey Abrams openly defends what Michael Bloomberg is doing, and ABC points out exactly why she did it. This, to me, is the epitome of corruption and evil. So let me read, because I first want to explain to you the aspirations of Stacey Abrams. She may end up as the VP pick for Michael Bloomberg. At least that's what people on The View are saying, as they openly defend what Bloomberg is doing. Stacey Abrams, the former Georgia gubernatorial candidate, who now focuses on tackling voter suppression head on, said she absolutely sees herself running for president one day. But for the 2020 cycle, she would be honored to run for vice president with whomever the Democratic nominee is. Why should we not want someone to have the power to fix the problems and the brokenness that we have? Abrams told the host of ABC's The View, I want to do good, and there is no stronger platform than president of the United States, and that's a position I want to one day hold. They go on to say, let me jump down. They say, and perhaps bolstering her chances of being picked by any of the candidates running, Abrams declined to endorse one candidate over the other, saying her job right now is to fix our democracy by ensuring everyone who's eligible to vote can. My best service is to be in that neutral space where it's not about who the nominee is. It's about making sure no matter who the nominee is, any person who wants to go and vote can vote. That's what we're doing through Fair Fight 2020. And now we can see how dark things get. Fair Fight 2020 is a multi-million-dollar initiative aimed at building up and financing voter protection operations in 20 battleground states throughout the current election cycle. In the 2018 gubernatorial election, Abrams lost to now Georgia Governor Brian Kemp by just 1.5 percentage points, and she never conceded the election. Throughout that race, Abrams accused Kemp, then the Secretary of State, meaning the person who oversees elections, of engaging in voter suppression, which Kemp denied. Back in November, a spokesperson for Abrams told ABC News that the funding goal for the teams in all 20 states was $5 million. And billionaire Democratic presidential candidate Michael Bloomberg made a donation of that amount to Abrams' Fair Fight Political Action Committee on December 20th, according to the campaign contribution disclosure report filed with the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission. On Monday's episode of The View, the hosts asked Abram about this donation and the hundreds of millions of dollars Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York, had spent during his campaign. She said, "I am grateful to any person who continues to fight contributes to Fair Fight. We have more than 100,000 contributors. His check just had a few more zeros on it," she said. "We appreciate that because, as I said, I'm not endorsing anyone. My job is to make sure, no matter who shows up, that they get to vote for who they want." According to the latest disclosure report filed on February 7th, Fair Fight PAC has raised nearly $20 million since its founding on December 2018, and almost $1.2 million last month. The PAC had just under $12 million cash on hand at the end of January. Abrams defended Bloomberg's colossal campaign spending, saying, "I think that for once we actually know where the money is coming from. Every person is allowed to run and should run the race that they think they should run. And Mike Bloomberg has chosen to use his finances. Other people are using their dog, their charisma, their whatever. I think it's an appropriate question to raise, but I don't think it's disqualifying for anyone to invest in fixing America." It's a dramatically different statement from what you'd hear from, say, Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders rejects these kinds of donations. Now we can see a kind of hilarious response on The View. Meghan McCain, of all people, pushed back on both Trump and Bloomberg. Yet what's truly shocking here is how Joy Behar, the establishment high-profile Democrat types, love that sweet Bloomberg cash. Stacey Abrams openly embraces taking money from an oligarch, something the progressives would reject. And on The View, absolutely, they defend Bloomberg. They say, after objecting to Bloomberg's past remarks and saying he is obviously a little tone deaf, they say, because of his background, Hostin went on to say that Bloomberg could convince Democrats he's contrite over his past views if he picked someone like former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams as a running mate if he were to win the nomination. But Behar, who moments earlier warned Democrats against tearing each other apart because the nominee will need to defeat President Donald Trump, reacted by claiming Bloomberg has done a lot for the black community too. McCain countered by bringing up a lawsuit dug up by the Washington Post in which Bloomberg was once sued for telling a female employee, "I'm not going to read this. I can't read it. I'm just saying, you want to go up against Trump and you want to take the moral high ground, Democrats. I don't know if this is going to be the guy." Behar responded by bringing up Trump's past remarks and comments, such as his reaction to Charlottesville, prompting McCain to snap back, "I'm not defending Trump because I'm attacking Bloomberg." And that is revealing. McCain says straight up she's not going to vote for Trump or Bloomberg. Yet immediately the defense from these people is, yeah, well, Trump is bad or worse. As if that is a defense of what Bloomberg is doing. It's not. Bloomberg, for me, is a hard line. And I was thinking about it the other day when I did my podcast, and I thought, maybe the Democratic establishment saw what Trump was and said, if you want this, we will one-up it and get you someone 10 times worse. Because as I've mentioned, everything they said Trump is, it's actually Michael Bloomberg. Now, in this tweet from Brian Schwartz, he says Bloomberg gave $5 million to Abrams Group's Fair Fight after someone else pointed out she was defending Michael Bloomberg. And we actually have the document this journalist from CNBC posted. Sure enough, Michael Bloomberg, $5 million. And yes, Fair Fight, Stacey Abrams' PAC. But here's where she misled you. She said, at least now we know where his money is coming from. We know where this money is coming from. No, you don't. From the AP, billionaire Bloomberg is granted financial disclosure delay. Why? He's going to win the delegates. He is going to completely disrupt the Democratic primary. Now, based on what's actually happening, it kind of feels like Bloomberg is trying to hurt the Democrats outright. But I think that's kind of silly. Though he is disrupting the primary and may cause a contested convention, maybe that's the point, to make sure an establishment candidate can win. But the AP report at the end of January, billionaire Michael Bloomberg won't have to publicly disclose his finances until late March, well after voters in more than a dozen states take to the polls on Super Tuesday. Presidential candidates are required to reveal their investments, businesses, and streams of income. Bloomberg, the former New York City mayor, is the only Democrat seeking the White House who has yet to file paperwork to publicly disclose his. And under an extension granted to him Friday by the FEC, the second such one Bloomberg has received, he can postpone their release until March 20th. All of these Democrats are cheering for the money he's pouring in. The progressives, Bernie, etc., I've mentioned, they're pushing back, and that's respectable. What's going to happen after Super Tuesday when all of these middle-of-the-road, desperate Democrats who hate Trump voted for him, giving him a massive delegate count, and then it's revealed where his money really comes from? And then they have to contend with what they've supported. The Democrats right now are between a rock and a hard place, and people like me who, for the most part, have voted Democrat. I mean, only a couple times, to be honest, but I grew up more on that side. Republicans were never a consideration. I think we're looking at dark times for whatever the left is in this country. On the right, what I see are Republicans who I disagree with. There's a couple of them I think are good people. There's a couple Democrats I kind of like. You know, on the Republican side, Dan Crenshaw and Rand Paul seem to be cool people. I disagree with them on a lot of policy issues. So when it comes to a lot of what the Republicans do, there's certainly things I think are politicking, underhanded, unethical, and disagreeable. And that's fine. That's just politics. I'm not going to vote for these people. What I'm looking for then is some safe and reasonable alternative from an honest person with some integrity. Instead, we get the woke far left insanity of the Bernie Sanders camp, who won't denounce the violence of his supporters and the insane rhetoric they've pushed. And you get Michael Bloomberg, who embodies everything the Democrats are supposed to hate. There is no rational choice. Dare I say, I think you will find people are going to flee the Democratic Party in droves. What sane, normal progressive American is going to vote for a billionaire like Bloomberg? I got to be honest. I thought that Donald Trump ran as a Republican, not because he's a Republican, but because the Democrats would never elect a billionaire. That's really what I thought. I mean, because if you look at Donald Trump's history, he was a Democrat for a long time. He's a New York, I guess you could technically say he's a New York conservative, meaning he's to the right of most Democrats, but he's still a Democrat. When he ran on the Republican ticket, I thought it was kind of surprising. He's the first president to support gay marriage before entering office. He was fairly liberal in a lot of ways, and some have compared him to Bill Clinton in terms of policy, not in terms of, other things. But now I look at Michael Bloomberg and I see that I was wrong. They don't care. They just want to win. They want someone in power who has the D slapped on his chest. That's it. Because if they claim Trump has said nasty things, bigoted things, Bloomberg actually did them. So what are you left with? Nothing but extremes. Bloomberg is not a moderate. He will not rally moderates. He will freak them out. And Bernie Sanders, if you saw what just happened at his rally on Sunday with that white dude attacking that black guy, I just don't see him as somebody strong enough to actually stand up and fight for something just. He's somebody who is weaponizing the scraps of the gutter of the far left and won't call it out. So the Democratic Party is beyond shambles. They've become a party of corruption, ineptitude, and evil. And I don't use the word evil lightly, but what Bloomberg is doing is evil. Again, it's corrupt in my opinion. And we need, to an extent, but we need laws for campaign finance reform. The Democrats were the ones championing that. They claimed to be, at least. Not anymore. Now they're openly embracing all of that sweet oligarch cash if it means they get to keep the power. That's evil. They're going to give him the seat, the throne, if it gives them power. Not for me. I won't stand for that. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastNews. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all there.